So until now, we've talked about financial assets, equities and debt, and we've talked about gold, which is a real asset. Now let's talk about the fourth asset class, which is also a real asset, which is real estate or property. So in equities and debt, the drivers of returns were the underlying cash flows. In the case of equities, it was company earnings. In the case of debt, it was the interest that the borrower would have to pay. In the case of gold, it was the demand and supply. Now, in real estate, it's a combination of the two, in that the underlying earnings is rental, which is basically the rental that you would get for renting that building out. The building could be commercial, which is an office, could be retail, a shop or a shopping mall. It could be industrial, like a warehouse or a factory. It could be residential, so it could be apartment blocks or houses. They're the four main sort of subsets of real estate. So when you rent any of these types of buildings out, you get a certain rental. You also put in the fact that the rental should increase, usually in line with inflation, or it could be a set percentage after a year, 2 years, 3 years. You could have a long-term lease, you could have a short-term lease, but most of us understand that basically we put in a price in the lease and then there's an increase. Now the price of the real estate, of the property, usually is a multiple of that rental income, which means that the price, the demand and supply of that real estate is driven by the underlying rental income. The rental income, in turn, is driven by the location of where it is. If it is in a great location for, say, if there's schools nearby, then the value of apartments go up. If there's a hospital nearby, same thing. If it is an office building, the level of infrastructure that is close by. If it is a retail, how much parking there is or what sort of public transport there is to it. So these factors all determine how much demand there would be for someone to want to rent and how much rent they would pay and how much increases they would be agreed to pay. So all of these factors affect real estate returns. So it would be the economic environment of the country, because that affects how affordable it can be. It could be interest rates, which drives inflation. Certainly inflation is a factor. Infrastructure developments around that property are a factor. So all these factors affect the price of real estate. So if a fund manager has to put together a real estate portfolio, they have to look at all these factors to be able to derive the most return. There are also different types of real estate. In each subsegment, there could be the equivalent of AAA or blue chip stocks, which is considered grade A, especially in office buildings. And then there's grade B, there's grade C. So usually it's a function of where the location is, as well as the facilities in the building. Something similar applies to retail and industrial as well. So now we have covered all four asset classes: equity, debt, gold, and real estate.